So let's get this off the palette. And let's use this 2-inch bristle brush with some clean water. And I want to wet the paper very well. I want to make sure there's lots of water in the paper. Now this is 300-pound paper, so it's going to hold a lot of water. It's like a big sponge. And the reason I'm using 300-pound is because I want to do lots of technique on the wet paper, and the 300-pound paper stays wet longer because it is so thick. All the techniques I'm showing you work equally well on 140-pound cold press paper, but of course on 140-pound paper you have to work faster because the paper is going to dry much quicker. It's not thick enough to hold a large amount of water. Make sure you have it totally covered. That's pretty well saturated. Now let's start by just using some of the Golden Lake. Golden Lake is a very, very clean, transparent, primary blue color. Has a nice glowing quality to it. And I want to put some Golden Lake in the sky right along the horizon, which would be a beautiful backdrop for this violet mountain. So let's put a nice clean wash of Golden Lake right across here using the 2-inch bristle brush. And I'm doing the graded wash, only this time I'm starting at the horizon moving up instead of moving at the top, moving down. It's the same effect, you still get that nice clean graded wash. I'll make that just a little bit darker. I'm taking it right up to the top. Now we're going to come in from the top with another color, which is primary red magenta. Primary red magenta, again, is a very clean, transparent. It's a slightly cool pink. But I'm going to start at the top and work down into the Golden Lake, so the two will merge and get this nice, soft, glowing sky. It's a very subtle effect, but it should make a nice backdrop for this painting. And it does give the impression that the sun has just gone down behind the hills and everything has that nice soft glow to it. That's as much work as the sky needs. That was very quick and very easy, using a large brush and just getting in and getting out. Don't dabble too much with it. Now let's take another bristle brush. This time I'm using the medium-sized brush. And I want to start putting in the distant mountain. Now this is all very wet, so I have to be careful not to put a really wet brush on this, otherwise it's going to start running away with blossoms and backgrounds. So if you can see my palette over here, I'm using a much thicker paint. There's not a lot of water in this paint. It's mostly just pigment. It's almost the consistency of melted butter. And I'm putting a little bit of violet in it, just to kind of lend itself to that pretty violet color I want to put in here. And I'm also putting a third color, which is green-blue. This is a very beautiful teal color. And let's dap the brush on the blotter, get the excess water out of it. And let's start putting in the mountain. So when I put the mountain in, I'm really thinking, what does this mountain look like? Don't just make a shape. This mountain is a very important part of my composition. So I'm really trying to give this some personality, give it a little bit of unusual shape, unusual form, make this entertaining to the viewer, because it is going to be a very important part of the painting when all is said and done. And as you see, I'm also going back and forth, trying to altering the color a little bit, kind of changing some of the shapes are more violet, some are more the blue realm. But it's a very strong, very rich backdrop for what's happening on that sky. Now let's come right over here and put a little bit. So this shows how the bristle brush is really wonderful for laying in these deep, rich colors. That's as much as the mountain needs, because it's there just as a backdrop. Now let's put some trees in front of the mountain. And I'm working quickly on this because remember, the paper is wet. You have to keep the paper wet at all times while you're doing this to get these nice soft edges. If I spend too much time working on this area, for example, this is all going to dry. So I'm really trying to pace the movement to coincide with the dampness of the paper. If the paper starts to dry, you have to work a little bit faster. Now let's make a nice mix of some of the Steel to Grain Brown. Steel to Grain Brown is a beautiful transparent. I've got it mixed with just a little bit of this color that I use for the mountains. Let's see if we can't put in some tree lines right along the edge of the mountain. In fact, some of these trees are coming up over the mountain. I'm starting right at the snow and pushing upward. And just like with the mountain, I'm going to vary the color from time to time. Some will be a little more violet, some might be more in the oranges. It's just important that I get a nice variety of colors.